Welcome to WagerTalk NFL Podcast. Scott Spreitzer here with Marco D'Angelo, Dave Cokin, and Matt Holt from CGT Sportsbooks in Las Vegas. And I want to jump into the games in just a minute, find out where the betting handle is for this week's card. But I'm going to ask you off the top real quickly, Zeke Elliott, he's in, he's out, he's in, he's out. The soap opera continues. You know what? We'll save that for when we get to the Dallas game, and we'll talk a little bit about where Zeke Elliott's value is this week, because it doesn't look like it's as steep, so to speak, as it was last week. So let's talk about this real quickly. How did you guys fare last week in the NFL?
Not bad. It wasn't the worst week for us. It was kind of an up and down week. Favorites winning again, and that's never great. The really popular favorites got there, and that ends up hurting the books a lot with teasers and everything. That's the Rams. We're talking about the Philadelphia Eagles. The big favorites went ahead and rolled last week, and that's never good. But we also got some key games in. There was lots of money on early on KC. So the Zeke game, the Dallas game, didn't end up being as bad as it could have because it was all Dallas late, but it was all KC early. So it actually balanced out a little better than people would think. It wasn't the best week. It wasn't the best.
You guys
week.
had a better October this year than last year, though.
Absolutely.
Even though it wasn't great.
You just don't want to have a second half of the season like you had last year.
No, that's all.
That was a night, and it wasn't so good for sharp bettors either. Those of us on the handicapping side, because it was just ridiculous.
Last year, that was not fun. Behind the counter and in front of it for sharp action. All right, guys, let's find out where the betting handle is for this week's card, and we'll set them up. You knock them down, Matt. Let's start with the Packers at Chicago on Sunday, where the Bears are laying 5.5 to 6 points. The game without a starting quarterback. Is there much betting interest on this game, Matt? And if so, who's getting the action with Trubisky on one side and Brett Hundley on the other?
There is a little bit of action on this game, and surprisingly, it's all on the Bears, and I can't figure it out. Look, I'm a big YPP guy, and I look at yards per play not just in terms of where everybody's season yards per play is in terms of yards per play and yards per play allowed, but last 3 games, home, away. And the one thing that I know for sure in watching all the Bears games this year is whether it's Mitch Trubisky or Mike Glennon or not, their offense stinks. The offense of the Chicago Bears has not really gotten any better under Mitch Trubisky. They still have trouble scoring. They failed to score an offensive touchdown against Carolina. Both of them were defense. Came back out, only got an offensive touchdown against New Orleans because of a penalty. I'm just not sold on this offense enough to lay 5.5, 6 points, but that's exactly what people are doing. And even more than that, to me, the value on the game, you could have laid 3 Monday, but yet they're laying 5.5 on Thursday. I don't know what it is about this game. Maybe Brett Hundley and the Packers need to be downgraded more than I thought, but both Public and Sharp are on the Bears.
All right, let's talk about this matchup. It's not exactly the marquee matchup of the week. The Steelers. One thing we'll note here, though, is this is a situation where the Steelers have historically had trouble under Tomlin going on the road as big chalk against a bad team. Well, nevertheless, the Steelers are big favorites against the Colts, and I'm guessing you're not getting a whole lot of bets on Indianapolis.
This one is probably going to be a pros versus Joes, but for right now, it's just sort of the public on Pittsburgh right now. The Sharps really haven't come in heavy on Indy, but they're also not playing. I don't know. I'm not sure where they're going to come on this game. If they don't, the number needs to move. But, because the problem with the Pittsburgh Steelers in this game right now is earlier in the year, we all talked about this Pittsburgh Steelers offense being underwhelming. Last 3 games, which for Pittsburgh means the last 4 weeks, so basically the last month of the season, yards per play, Pittsburgh Steelers, number 2 in the entire NFL, 6.5 yards per play. All those offensive woes they had early in the year seem to be cured, and that's going to spell trouble, maybe even this week for Indianapolis.
Just to add to that one, though, the Steelers do have a game on Thursday night this week, so you have a little bit of a possible look ahead, or rare Thursday night game in the Steel City. Moving on to the Jets at Tampa Bay, and look at the New York Jets. 4 wins on the season. That season win total. Everybody betting the under on them. They get that
grinning from
one more, baby.
They get that win on Thursday night against a lifeless Buffalo Bill team last week, and now they face a Tampa Bay Buccaneer team that's lost 5 games in a row. They lose their quarterback, Jameis Winston. But was it a good thing? How did you guys adjust the number with Winston out and Fitzpatrick in?
So here's what we did. We said, look, an injured Jameis, because his shoulder hasn't been right in weeks, is only about a point better than Fitzgerald. or Fitzpatrick. So that's
Well,
basically
Fitzgerald. What the hell? I mean,
Yeah,
neither one of them
whatever.
are any good, you know.
So Ryan Fitzpatrick's maybe a point worse, 1.5 worse than Jameis, mostly because of perception in the year Jameis had last year. But we know Jameis wasn't going to be 100%, so we called it 1.5
stinks anyways.
We threw in another half a point for Mike Evans on the suspension and said, let's call it 2.5 max. But last week this line was 5.5 in the look ahead. So 2 to 2.5 means Tampa Bay -3. Or Tampa Bay 2.5, not the New York Jets 2.5. There has been an 8-point adjustment to Winston and Evans not playing in this
too much,
game,
isn't it?
and that's too much.
So aren't the Sharps going to have to come in on this one late? On
I
Tampa?
assume that we're going to get late Tampa Bay action, and that this game will probably close closer to a pick. But I'll tell you, the public money right now is over 95% on the New York Jets,
I
and the
can't argue with
NFL
that.
is the one place where public can move the number.
Yeah, and you can't argue with it.
I'll
I
tell
mean,
you
the
what,
Jets are playing,
Yeah.
but I'm saying, I can argue with it, and you can argue with it. Any handicapper can, but just the Joe Public, I can't argue with what they're seeing here. The Jets are playing hard, they're playing well. Tampa, they could wave the white flag. I mean, they could turn into the Giants.
They could.
It's a bad team right now that's getting
Jameis
worse.
Winston is, to me, guys, the most overrated quarterback the last 3 seasons.
He still makes the same lousy decisions he made when
Do
he
you
was
know
at
how many
Florida
passes
State.
should be picked off that
Oh,
he
man.
throws? I mean, it's just not good.
Plus that fumble, the Carolina game 2 weeks ago, that fumble was like something a high school quarterback does.
By
where
the
he's
way,
clearly getting
I will
sacked,
say
and
this,
he tries
though.
to shovel the ball out and it gets picked off.
I will
It's
say this,
awful.
though. I was saying this to Jason Simbel today. We had him on the show, Dave and I, on Las Vegas Sports Line. And I said, well, Jason, here's something I thought I would not be saying until at least 2018. The Jets are road chalk in the NFL.
Yeah, really.
I didn't think it was going to say that until 2018.
I'll tell you what I grabbed on this game is I teased the home side here. You got a low total, and you got the Jets laying points on the road. I teased Tampa Bay up. I grabbed that right away.
Listen, I'm probably not going to play it, but you do have one other factor here. And these are the kind of things that kind of matter to me. Intangibles. How pissed off do you think Fitzpatrick is at the way he got screwed over by the Jets?
Little revenge
You think
spot.
he wants this game real bad?
All right, guys. Bengals at Titans. Titans laying 4.5 as that number has come down a point. Hate laying points with teams that can't pass the football, and the Titans are 27th. They're 1-3-1 against the spread when laying more than 2 points. They just don't win by margin, Matt.
Yeah, but the interesting thing about this game is let's look at the Cincinnati Bengals last 3 games on the road. At Pittsburgh, 3.5-point underdogs. At Jacksonville, down to 3.5, 4-point underdogs. At Tennessee, who's clearly the worst of the 3 teams we just named, 4.5, 5-point underdogs. Something doesn't seem right there with that line to me.
Let's go Browns and Lions. Here we go. It's happening again. Here comes the Browns money showing up. $0 and 0 cents of it is mine. I don't want the Lions either, but this is where the Sharps get stubborn, don't they, Matt? They don't care how many times they lose with the
math
Browns.
model.
They're just going to keep on betting them anyway.
And this is one of those spots where this is going to be a huge pros versus Joes game. And if you want to see a good example of how what we saw last can move a game with the public, the Detroit Lions go on Monday Night Football, Lambeau Field, look like clearly the better team against the Green Bay Packers, win that game going away, and suddenly that line, which was Detroit -9.5 at 4 p.m. Monday afternoon, is now 12.5 with the Detroit Lions. They got 3 points better after that game. I'm not sure about that. I know that the Sharps are going to drive in on Cleveland because of that big public line move, but the public absolutely loving Detroit after the Monday night game. This one going to be a big-time pros versus Joes.
Two of the craziest stats you're going to find right now in the NFL. Cleveland's covered 7 of the last 34 games. 7 of the last 34. And Detroit hasn't had a 100-yard rusher in 59 straight games.
That's more unbelievable. It's not possible is right.
Going to the next game, we're going to go to the Texans and the Rams. And Matt, I use this saying all the time, but I'm sure somebody else will claim it. But no team's as good as their best game, or are they as bad as their worst? And we've got 2 teams here that had opposite ends of the spectrum with games. You had the L.A. Rams put up 51 points last week on the road at the New York Giants. And then you had Houston without Deshaun Watson playing an Indianapolis team that they should have been able to beat anyways and still was not able to get the job done. How do you put up a number on a game like this where you really don't know how bad Houston is without Watson? But one thing you got to remember from last week is Watson went down later in the week. It wasn't like it was an injury on Sunday and you knew all week that you were going to use the backup. They had, Savage didn't get a full week of practice.
Day and a half
last week.
to prepare.
Right. So now he's got a full week. Do you take that into consideration?
We do, but the public doesn't. And the public, according to the public, and maybe it's our proximity to L.A., but it is a foregone conclusion that it is going to be the Philadelphia Eagles and the LA Rams in the NFC Championship game. They are betting the Rams in the futures. They're betting the Rams to win the NFC, and they're betting the Rams this week. I personally like Houston. I think there's going to be a lot of sharp money on Houston. To your point, Tom Savage had a day and a half to prepare for that game. And the team, how do you get emotionally up for a game when you just lost your quarterback? After 2 weeks earlier, you lost two of your best defensive players. You just can't get up after that. I do think they'll fire back this week with a much better effort. They still have Will Fuller and DeAndre Hopkins and a lot of weapons around
still win the
Savage.
division.
Sure.
I mean, they're still in the race.
Sure.
They still have Western Union. They do, don't they?
Yeah, sure.
All right, I don't have his text number, so I'm gonna Western Union this tonight to Kyle Shanahan. The New York Giants are coming to your town. Start Jimmy Garoppolo. Are you kidding me?
No, but
he's not going to play again.
But we figured this out today. Actually, Jason figured it out when we were talking to Jason Simple. I think Jason was the one to mention
He's keeping him a secret.
No, they want to make sure they don't want to win this game.
They want the first pick.
They want, and I'm telling you. I think that enters into the handicapping in this game.
Here's the problem. But they still have to sign this guy to a huge-ass contract, potentially a franchise player, after the season's over. Don't you want to see him in live action? Isn't this the team you want to do it again? Put him in there for a quarter and a half and then sit his butt down, I think.
Look, if you're asking me, I want to win. But I always want to win. But I hate this team.
If he was under contract, it's fine. But he's not under contract. They're going to have to put a franchise tag, but they got to see if he can play first.
I know, but I think they're going to sign him anyway.
But
that's the only reason, the only logical reason they're not starting him here, because otherwise this is the perfect opponent for him to start against.
That's the only possible reason.
Have you seen this offensive line for San Francisco?
But you
do want to get him here?
Here's the thing, but he's not. He's not in a uniform.
You've seen the defensive line for the Giants,
and we've been talking about it since he went.
Yeah.
You've got to play this guy a couple of times during the season and see if you want, because you're going to have to pay out a whole lot of money. Belichick didn't want to get rid of this guy.
I know I don't want to go too long with this.
Right.
You know what? He's already proven he can play in the NFL. He did. No, he looked fine when Brady was out for the 4 weeks last year. He looked good.
Matt Castle looked great.
And then he got hurt, and Brissett had to come in. But this kid's an NFL quarterback. There's no doubt in my mind he's an NFL quarterback.
Well, he hasn't played yet, other than a couple of games, and I get what you're saying.
I know, but he's not Hundley. Okay, this guy can play.
For the New
Does
England
getting him
Patriots
killed prove anything?
Marco and I
sending
can
him
each
out
play
there
half
and getting
New
him
England
killed
and win
prove
3 out of 4
anything? No.
games.
He wouldn't get killed against the Giants.
Here's the
not
thing.
this
I got to
week.
throw this out there, guys. I
Might
know
not
you're
even
going back
sweat
and
against
forth,
the Giants.
but listen for a second. He played for the New England Patriots.
Yes, I know.
Let's see if he can play for anybody else. And he only played 2 or 3 games.
There isn't anybody
I just
else.
disagree with the fact that he's on the sideline against the New York freaking
No, we
Giants.
agree on that.
Yeah. He's got to come in and play, as far as I'm concerned. So there. Anyway, as far as that game, Matt, is concerned, the reason we're here is to find out what is happening with the handle on this
whether or
incredible
not Jimmy
contest.
G should be the starting QB is irrelevant to the bettors. They're all on the NYG, as this line's taking a big move up, and it's all G-men money this
Sharp
week.
and public?
Yep. Now, I think if it hits 3, we'll see buyback, but you shouldn't have to go from San Fran 1 to Giants 3 without any critical information just to get buyback.
There you go. Dave?
I'm reading stuff, by the way, on this game that's just unbelievable. So, do some research, folks. You'll find some real revelations. Speaking of the best franchise, and it is. This isn't a joke. Best franchise in modern sports history. The New England Patriots are at Denver, and that's a lot of points. I mean, it's a lot of points, Matt. I know the Broncos are a bad football team right now, but man, that's a lot of points.
I think this one's going to be another pros versus Joes game this week because the YPP on Denver's good, and that's what happened last week versus Philadelphia. You saw like a super contest line at 8.5, and the public all over the Philadelphia Eagles. But the Sharps, they crunch the numbers and they go, you know what? Maybe this one should be 6.5, and they come in heavy on the other side. That's probably going to be the case again this week. I think the Sharps might be a little more gun shy than last week because of the beating they took on Denver. But But again, this is one of those games that's going to qualify for a lot of sharp players, and we're seeing it already. This line hasn't come off 7.5, and I can assure you that over 90% of the dollars wagered over the count so far are on the New England Patriots.
Last game is Monday night, and I just want to ask the NFL, what did we ever do to you to make us watch the Miami Dolphins on a Thursday night 2 weeks ago, last week on a Sunday night, and now we got to watch them on a Monday night?
They were 10-6 last year. That has, okay, they're going to be pretty good, right? Turned out not to be the case.
Boy, has this been ugly, and they're going to Carolina, coming off a monster game last week for Carolina against Atlanta. You had the two reigning NFC back-to-back year Super Bowl teams last week in a key divisional game. Does Carolina roll over Miami on Monday, or do they take them for granted and just show up?
Going to be a huge pros versus Joes Monday night. I know the pros love to use YPP, and here's a good example on home-away splits. Carolina, what was I looking at here? Away. Carolina, less yards per play at home than they do on the road. 5.1 yards per play this season on the road. Just 4.4 yards per play at home for the Carolina Panthers offense. It has been bad. The Sharps are going to be all over the Miami Dolphins in a huge number on Monday night. Public's going to be all over Carolina because even though Carolina hasn't looked good offensively, they're winning football games all of a sudden. Sharp knows that Cam Newton being the leading rusher on this team 4 straight games actually isn't a good thing. Public seems to think the other side. This one's going to be a big-time pros versus Joes Monday night.
Matt, how many teasers you think you can have Sunday night with New England?
Man.
Tease to Carolina on Monday night.
We may have to make the number 9.5 just to shut down some of the teasers. Really?
It's going to come close to doing something.
People will say, why did you go to 9.5? Just to turn those 6-point teasers into 3.5.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we've got some fun games to talk about coming up in just a bit, and a couple of spots that I think are definitely worthy of plucking down a few bucks on. We're going to talk about the Vikings and Skins, the Chargers and the Jags, the Saints at the Bills, and we'll find out what's going on with a line adjustment with Zeke Elliott, and the Cowboys travel to Atlanta to take on the Falcons. Those games plus best bets still to come. Stick around.
It's Manic Monday, and that means every pick at WagerTalk.com is just $9. Get a play in any sport valued at up to $30 for just $9 each and every Monday at WagerTalk.com.
Welcome back to Wager Talk NFL version. You can also check out the college football podcast up right now at WagerTalk.com. We're going to also get to best bets in just a little bit, but first we're going to jump to the betting side of the counter and talk about a few games. The Vikings are in D.C. to take on Washington and Matt the Skins. They can't run. The Vikings can't stop the run. They do stop the run. I was waiting for somebody to jump in. Nobody jumped in after I said
confused.
that. The Vikings stopped the run. I messed up everybody and confused everybody. And they're 7th against the pass also. This is a best bet that Matt's going to have later in the show. But, Matt, I do want to get the behind-the-counter perspective because we didn't talk about this game as far as the betting was concerned. We'll start with you, find out where the handle is on this game.
A lot of love for both teams right now. Minnesota Vikings, their defense is so red hot, and I think a lot of people have responded to that, the public especially. And even though it doesn't matter to this week, and I actually think of it as a negative to Case Keenum, the public seems to like the fact that the Vikings have activated Teddy Bridgewater here. Mm-hmm. That seems to have enhanced more betting. I mean, we always talk about information that triggers betting. We actually saw some betting triggered when they announced the activation of Teddy Bridgewater. So the public seems to think it's a positive. Both teams playing really well defensively right now. And we're seeing two-way action on this game. It'll be interesting to see where it closes because both over-the-counter and on account, there's really strong two-way action on this football game.
Marco, I got to ask you, how much do we put into this when you handicap? How much are you put into this that, Minnesota's on this 4-game winning streak, but it was against Chicago, Green Bay when Rodgers got injured after making 4 passes, Baltimore and Cleveland.
Yeah, there's no question they've had a soft schedule. It worked out well, and then with Aaron Rodgers going down, giving them, the inside track to the division. Generally, guys, you got Minnesota coming off the bye week. And when a team goes into a bye on a roll, if I do anything with that team, I'm generally fading them because I think the bye week is a momentum stopper for a team on a roll, where if a team's struggling, they're going to use that time to fix things. But I look at this defense and I look at Washington, and I know Matt's talked about it the last few weeks with the Washington Redskins and all of their injuries. Again this week, I think they had like 14 people on the injury report. Yeah. And you can get away with that against teams that don't play defense. Mm-hmm. You know, they hung in a while against Dallas, and then they had that costly blocked field goal that changed the whole complexion of the game. They were going to go up 2 scores in that game, and instead it set up a touchdown the other way. And then last week they stole a game from Seattle. But they're not going to be able to run the football against this Minnesota team. And when you become one-dimensional, which I think they're going to be in this game, Matt's talked about it, you can't win on the NFL level one-dimensional. This defense is too good for Minnesota, and you're in a spot where it's just pick the winner with the line. I got to play Minnesota or I don't play this game.
And look, that was a really exciting win for the Redskins last week, and I give this team full credit because, and it's not like I've been betting against them. I have in a few spots and actually have done well picking my spots against them, and this won't be one of them. But I give the Redskins full credit for overcoming a lot of potential negatives. Cousins, from day one, could have been a big-time negative situation because he's not going to be there next year. He's gone. And, have a lame duck quarterback, if you will, is not the best thing in the world. Then the offensive line injuries, which have just been nonstop over and over and over again throughout the course of the season. They're going out into a really difficult location last week, and they come from behind against what is still a pretty good defense. That's a great win for that team. Full props to Cousins. Full props to Gruden. I still don't like the spot for him here, though, and I would have to lean to the Vikings in this game.
The Chargers at the Jaguars, and how about those Jacksonville Jaguars? This one's been down, bet down a little bit to 3.5. The Jags, the favorites at home. Chargers haven't been able to run or stop the run for the most part this year. Fournette expected to play for the Jaguars at the latest update. Top 5 ranked ground game for this Jacksonville team. And Matt, where are the pros and the Joes in this one with the Jags laying a little bit more than a field goal here?
Interesting game here. We're seeing, again, two-way action here. Basically, number open 4. It's down to 3.5. Slightly more action on the LA Chargers on account than the Jacksonville Jaguars. About 3 times as much action on the Jacksonville Jaguars over the counter as the LA Chargers. And I think the Sharps really like the Chargers here, and for good reason. This is a team that's offense has kept them in games all year. And I don't want to say the Jacksonville Jaguars are lucky in any way, because I like this football team and I love their defense. But they've gotten more defensive touchdowns and special team touchdowns than anyone in the entire NFL this year. And that means something, and we all know that is an unsustainable stat and one that is not, you can't accurately predict in the future. Assuming they get a few less of those punt returns, interception returns, fumble returns, the way the Chargers is coming on, it's not a surprise. We're seeing sharp action on the LA Chargers. And for a change, and we haven't seen in this Chargers offense in basically years, everyone's healthy all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Melvin Gordon can play. Keenan Allen's in there. Their receivers. It's like, whoa.
Keep Melvin Gordon active, man, on that football field, and you're going to do well if you're the Chargers, I think.
I'm going to save this for the best bet portion of the podcast.
Mr. D'Angelo.
You look at this one. This is a tough one for me because I just can't bring myself comfortably to say lay the points with the Jacksonville Jaguars. We're so accustomed to what we've seen from this team in the past. But guys, they're building a very good team down there in Jacksonville. I am surprised when you look at the numbers. They're the number 1 ranked defense in points allowed at just 14.6 points per game. Jacksonville, number 3 defensively in yards per play, 4.9. Number 3 in total yards allowed, 281 per game. The one weak link on this team is their rushing defense. That has been the part that teams have been able to pound the ball at them. But then you look at the other side of the coin with this team, they are running the football, and it's making Blake Bortles, I don't want to say a good quarterback, but a better quarterback.
He's only a 59% passer, but he's not making mistakes because he's got that running game.
He's got the running game. Guys, they ran for 231 yards against my Steelers. They ran for 169 yards against the Rams, 188 against Indianapolis, and 148 against Cincinnati. Now, granted, the last 2 teams, Indianapolis and Cincinnati, not good. But the Rams and Pittsburgh, they are good teams. If I had to take it, I got Jacksonville winning by 7, but I just can't say those words.
I don't normally try
that would be the lowest victory margin, believe it or not, of the entire year if they win by 7. They're blowing
That's what I
teams
was going
out.
to say. And that's one of the instances where we don't always say that, hey, you could tell what's going to happen in the game within the first 10 minutes. Dave says it all the time. In Jacksonville Jaguar games, you actually can. When this team jumps out to a lead, they get a quick special teams touchdown, they're able to move the ball down the field and get up a score or two, they are the best team in football.
Yep.
That margin of victory is unbelievable. But you know what happens just as often in games where they're trailing? They get blown out because Blake Bortles has to start throwing the football, and this team is not built to do that. Basically, you can watch the first quarter of a Jacksonville Jaguars game. If they're up 10, don't fade them. Jump on board.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're stuck 10, you can take the other side. That has been a dead ringer 100% this year.
Right now,
every game.
You can make a case, a legitimate case. I'm not saying this to be funny, although it might kind of sound funny. But he's running the team. He's not the coach. The coach of the year ought to be the guy who's not even the coach. It's Coughlin. It's Coughlin.
Oh, yeah.
The guy, he's great. He is one of the all-time greats at putting together the right people in the right position at the right time.
Agreed.
He's fantastic, and that guy has to be in the Hall of Fame.
One side note to this game to remember: San Diego defensive coordinator Scott Spreitzer. You think that he might have a little extra 2 weeks to prepare for his old team that showed him the
there's
door?
a flip side to that.
Yeah.
I think some of the players weren't real crazy about Bradley, so they might want to send him home with a loss, you know.
Works both ways, that's for sure.
To Matt's point, the Jacksonville wins this year have come by 22, 37, 21, 27, and 16 points. 2 of the 3 losses, they got beat 37-16 by the Titans, 27-17 by the Rams. They're either in it or they're not.
Yep.
It's about as simple as that. Saints are at the Bills. CGT opened the Saints a 2.5-point road favorite at Buffalo. Got up to 3. Last check, Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, but last check, I saw it back down to 2.5. And I'll say this about Buffalo. They win home games when Tyrod Taylor's on the field.
You know what's interesting about this game, and it's turned into a pros versus Joes game, and the public is all over the New Orleans Saints here, and for good reason. 6.6 yards per play, last 3 on offense, and the defense is playing at a top 8 level the last month all of a sudden. That's probably not sustainable, but at least you know that this defense is improving and the offense is on absolute fire. And there's a lot of sharps all over New Orleans. And I keep hearing them say, hey, you know, New Orleans can't play outside. They can't play in weather. Hey, it's supposed to be 50 degrees, sunny with no wind. I'm not sure there's going to be any weather up there this weekend. If that's your angle on this game, you better take another look.
Drew Brees likes this team. He likes playing against Buffalo in the course of his career.
Yeah, you know.
I don't like it this week, but I'm just telling you, he likes it.
A lot of guys have liked playing against Buffalo over the years. All right?
Hell, I would like to play against Buffalo over the years.
Well, really, you have to consider the weather at this time of year.
Yes.
Especially it's a dome team
You have
going
to look,
outside.
but you can't make
It's
the
an Orchard
assumption.
Park,
It's a
you
fact.
got the wind is swirling around.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fact. So, you know, get the latest weather forecast on Saturday. That's the thing. You can't really go by advance. And those of us who grew up in the Northeast,
Yeah.
we know this.
Yes.
You do to some extent in Pittsburgh, Marco, but Matt and me have a pretty
Yes.
good handle on this.
It's going to be sunny tomorrow, nor'easter.
Yeah.
Bang.
anything outside of about 10 hours is a useless weather forecast in New England. It just is. I mean, the blizzard of 78 was supposed to be, we got a few inches of snow. Okay. We were digging out for a week. I was using a sled to get down the hill and get the bread from Harvest Bakery. Listen, the Saints, though, they're playing such good football. And Peyton's still one of the better coaches around. I think he maybe fell out of favor in terms of the reputation because the Saints were so bad defensively for years. But now all of a sudden, they got a defense. You look at it on paper, and it's not a great unit. It's not supposed to be. And you look at the names, you know. But they're playing together. Yep. Great cohesiveness out there. Breeze is he's like a machine. You know,
And the numbers show it.
If it wasn't for Brady being ridiculous at 48 or whatever he is, Breeze would be getting all that attention.
Avocado ice cream.
For being 47 and doing the same thing. Because you know those guys are lying about their age. It's like the Dominican guys. You know, the guy, he's 26. Guy's 40, all right?
When he was 26, he was pitching Little League
Really,
Baseball.
yeah. Breeze he's having a great year. And the team's playing with great confidence. And they've taken off. And I don't know how much that had to do with it. But they have taken off since they decided, Adrian Peterson, nothing wrong with Adrian Peterson, but he's kind of creating congestion at the running back spot because you got to get him some carries. And Kamala's he's getting the bulk of the work now. This guy's a player. They've got the right guys in the field. I don't want to go against New Orleans here, to me, it's the weather's okay. I think the Saints are going to beat them. If it's not, I think maybe you stay away.
It's Marco's best bet, so we'll let him pass this particular game. Let's move on to the Cowboys and the Falcons in Atlanta. What's the story, Holt, behind the counter? I mean, Zeke Elliott has been in, he's been out, he's been in, he's been out. Latest was said that he's not going to play as of Thursday afternoon, but we still got 48 hours or so to kick off, 72 hours almost to kick off. What did you guys do when you heard he was out today? Because it didn't move around like it did last week when we thought he was going to be out.
Well, we didn't necessarily anticipate for sure that he'd be out, but we anticipated, like every other week this season, that we would go through the process, that there was going to be an appeal. They were going to say he's out. He's going to appeal it. So why not just make him questionable, put the line favoring that he will be out, and let it upgrade if he's in. Yep. And on the other side of the ball, we had injuries too early in the week that caused we talk about information all the time, and it is such a trigger. People look for betting triggers. Look, we had 2 Atlanta key players questionable on Monday. Deonta Freeman, Julio Jones. They both got upgraded. Yep. Everyone goes, whoa, you guys opened at Atlanta 3 with the strong play and everything. We opened it light, and the Atlanta money instantly came in with the immediate upgrades of Julio Jones is going to play, Deonta Freeman's going to play. Those triggers brought that early Atlanta action because at that time, on the other side of the football, Zeke Elliott's questionable because of the suspension, and Des Bryant, who just got upgraded about 10 minutes before Zeke got downgraded, was also questionable, and a lot of people didn't know if he was going to play. So it looked like Atlanta's going to get their stars in the lineup. Dallas might not. Got to have Atlanta favored here, and since then it's been proven right. Both Atlanta stars going to play there. It looks like Des Bryant is actually going to play, but Ezekiel Elliott's anybody's guess at this point.
Marco?
Yeah, you look at this one, and, the Falcons, after starting the season 3-0 and scoring 87 points in those first 3 games, they have been in total free fall since then. And, I think the whole season was circled around that revenge game against New England. They got themselves so wrapped up into going to New England, the Super Bowl revenge, and they haven't recovered. And they also played 3 games in a row on the road, something that doesn't happen a lot in the NFL until this year. We've had a few teams that have had to do that 3 straight road games. So now they're returning back home. The automatic knee-jerk reaction is to jump on that team returning home. Mm-hmm. But I want no parts of the Atlanta Falcons as a home favorite. Guys, the last 21 times that Atlanta's been a home favorite, just 5-16 against the spread. Do I want to jump on the Cowboys? Not really. So what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to go with what I thought I was going to get last week, was no Zeke Elliott in the lineup, and that we're going to get more passes out of Dak Prescott, and going against this Atlanta defense that they can move the football on. I'm going to go with the over. And if you look at Atlanta's last 13 home games, 11-2 to the over. Their last 17 games against NFC teams, home or away, they're 14-3 to the over. I think both teams are going to be able to score. I think Atlanta finds their offense this week. They get the couple players that were dinged up back. I think, is going to be a shootout. This might be one of those games, to use the old cliche, whoever has the ball last is the team that wins, and I'm looking for a shootout. I'm taking the over.
Dave, this is like, Matt was talking a little bit ago about Jacksonville. You know what you get 10 minutes into the game.
Yeah.
Don't ride Atlanta just because they're up 14-3 at the end of the first quarter, because this team has been out-adjusted throughout the course of the game all season.
Yeah. Sarkisian, I think he's he's in the booth now. He ought to be in the euchre seats. Okay? Put some euchre seats in and put him there. He'll have less of an impact on the game, and that'll be a good thing for the Falcons. I want no part of the Falcons at this point. None.
Yep.
So it's either bet against the Falcons, which I did last week because my game of the week was Carolina. It's either bet against the Falcons or leave the game alone. I think the one thing about this Elliott situation on the Cowboys side is they're getting kind of pissed off about this as a team. And I don't blame them. And if you want something that's going to galvanize the team and really have them playing together as a unit, and I think their owner is right there with them on this one. Yeah, this is pretty strong stuff. I wouldn't go against the Cowboys right now.
I actually kind of like the Cowboys in this spot, and just going against Atlanta again, but a lot of the reasons you mentioned.
And look, we talk about there's certain triggers that make people bet. Mm-hmm. Yards per play is that cliche stat the last couple of years that all the sharps love. It got them on Jacksonville every game last year and lost their entire bankroll.
But it's still, by and large, it's a pretty good metric. It is a good
stat, but there's always an outlier or two. And this year, the best team, according to YPP all year, has been the Atlanta Falcons. Right. And those backers every game are wishing they never heard the word yards per play.
Every good analysis has its outliers. Okay? It's the Jeff Locke angle. I call it the Jeff Locke system. Remember Jeff Locke?
Sure.
Yeah.
Pitcher for the
Yep.
Pittsburgh Pirates.
100%.
I learned a lesson with him the hard way a few years ago. It's like this guy's metrics was so bad, it's scary. There has to be a regression to the norm. There has to be. And it never happened that year. And I kept on losing bet after bet going against the Pirates when this guy was on the mound. It happened the next year, and he ended up back in the minor leagues. So the metrics were correct in saying that he's not a good pitcher. The problem is sometimes it just takes forever. To me, you wait for it to start adjusting. That's the lesson I learned: is wait for it to start adjusting.
If the team's
and then
scoring, I
jump in.
like him. If they're not, I don't. You know, it's just, if it's every other week, it's different. But if it's every single week, and that's the Falcons,
Here's
and
the
you're
thing.
8 or 9 weeks in,
If they go out, if the Falcons go out on Sunday and have a really good game, that's a sign that it might be time. That might be the buy sign where there'll be a correction to what should be the norm as far as their metrics are concerned. But until they have that really good performance,
I want to see it 2 times in a row. And
you know what? I think I like that even better.
Yeah. With them, I do. I mean,
yeah.
Anyway. All right, guys, let's take our final timeout. When we come back, best bets in this week's NFL. Good stuff, Dave.
Every Tuesday, WagerTalk.com offers a best bet selection from its hottest handicapper. It's a great way to introduce yourself to WagerTalk.com with a big best bet winner for just $2 on $2 Tuesday.
All right, welcome back to Wager Talk NFL. Final segment, best bet segment. We turn to the NFL. We'll start with the man under the hat. Follow him on Twitter at Dave Cokin. Dave, what do you got for us this week?
And by the way, 2-0 while we've been recording the podcast. This hot streak continues. Oilers in hockey and North Carolina.
King of the pods.
North Carolina outright against Pitt in college football. They're walking off the field now in celebration. I think you celebrate with the Jaguars. I have a lot of respect for this Chargers football team. I think they're pretty good. I like what Coach Lynn is doing, but I'm telling you what, this Jacksonville team, they got it all going right now. This is a go-with team. Now, I know they've failed in a couple of spots this year coming off good performances, but last week they didn't fail coming off a good performance. Put together another one. The defense is dominating right now. I think the Jaguars are going to handle the Chargers by at least a touchdown in this game.
At Matthew Holt, VP, is where you follow Matt, and he is, of course, VP of Business Development at CGT Sportsbooks in Las Vegas. What do you got, Matt?
Minnesota Vikings, Washington Redskins, under 43, 42.5 is fine too, if that's what you have to get, as the number has dropped a little bit. Minnesota Vikings, 3.8 yards per play allowed last 3 weeks, best in the National Football game. Only one team the entire season scored more than 17 points against the Minnesota Vikings, the New Orleans Saints, in week 1, scoring 19. Nobody's hit 20 on the Vikes this year. Washington's offense still not back to full strength with all the injuries. They're going to have a tough time moving the ball against this elite defense. And I think Case Keenum might be a little bit slowed even more this week, even though Minnesota's already conservative, because it never helps a backup quarterback who takes over as a starter when they just announced that the previous starter, Teddy Bridgewater, just got activated to the team. Expect this one to be low scoring.
At Marco in Vegas is where you follow Marco D'Angelo. What do you got for a best bet this week, sir?
I'm going to go to Buffalo. We're going to shuffle off to Buffalo, and I'm going to take the home dog here. You talk about teams where their stock is at the highest point, and another team maybe the stock at its lowest point. Last week, Buffalo looked just putrid on Thursday night. They looked lifeless against the Jets.
Putrid's too good of a word for what they look like.
And now they had those extra days to prepare. And the Saints, everybody's jumping on the bandwagon. Everybody's singing the praises of this the Saints defense, how it's turned around. Guys, have you taken a look at, in this 6-game winning streak, the last 5 teams that they played? The Miami Dolphins, they shut out in London. It was the Dolphins. Have you guys looked at the Dolphins' offense lately? Then they took care of Green Bay. Well, I'm skipped the Detroit game. I'll come back to that. Then they took care of Green Bay without Aaron Rodgers. Then they had Chicago with Mitch Trubisky that has had all kinds of problems so far. Tampa Bay, Jameis Winston's been horrible this year, bad shoulder. Now they're actually facing a team that's got all of its components. Tyrod Taylor, although he's not going to be a Hall of Fame quarterback.
He wins at home, doesn't he?
I mean, he's actually the best quarterback that they have going to face in that list that I said. The one team that they faced that had a quarterback, Detroit, with Matthew Stafford, they got out to a big lead in that game because of 5 turnovers. They were able to pin their ears and come after Stafford, but Detroit still put up 38 points. A lot of it in the second half, but don't say it was all garbage time because they got that game to within 7 in that big blowout by the Saints. I like Buffalo here. That's my best bet.
Well, it's not my best bet on the show, but I'm with you. And Matt Holt, it's not just because of the weather. I'll tell you that much right now. My best bet, I'll make it quick. The Bengals plus the points over the Tennessee Titans. I know Cincy's offensive line can be a little shaky. I don't think Tennessee can take advantage of it. They don't also pass the ball well either, do the Titans. 27th in the passing game in yards per contest. I don't think they can extend a lead. As I mentioned earlier, they've covered 1 of 4 when laying more than 2 points this season. And again, they're playing this coming Thursday. That's the opponent for Pittsburgh. I think you mentioned Pittsburgh a little bit ago, playing on a Thursday night next week. That's what Tennessee is going to be doing also next week. Give me Cincinnati plus the points this week over Tennessee, my best bet. All right, for all the guys, I'm Scott. We'll be back next week. You know the drill. Win big this weekend. Put them in the win column. Check out the College Football Podcast. We're out of here.
And I bid you good night. Good night. Good night.
I'll catch you on the flip side.